I'm joined by Hannah Varel, the head women's basketball coach at Transylvania University. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Gavin. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your time. So you're the new head women's basketball coach at Transylvania University. Can you tell me about Transylvania University? I believe you're a Division III university in Lexington, Kentucky. So can you just tell me a little bit about your university?
Yeah, so we are a small liberal arts school based in Lexington, about an hour from Louisville. We're about a mile right down the road from University of Kentucky. I think one of the things that our players love, and I think everybody that visits Transy loves, is that you kind of get the best of both worlds of the small Division III atmosphere of community feel, professor engagement, one-on-one involvement, especially from the academic side. But then being in a city like Lexington kind of gives our players and really the entire student population the best of both worlds of, if you want to walk downtown and go out to eat or tailgate UK football or have that SEC experience, you can do that. But if you want to make Transy feel as small as it is, which is right around 1,000 students, you can kind of get that experience too. So it gives our players and our staff kind of the best of both worlds of what they're looking for.
Yeah. So this will be your first season as head women's basketball coach at Transylvania. But your team's already begun. You played two exhibition games in Canada recently. So first
Mm-hmm.
off, let's talk about those exhibition games in Canada. First, I was interested to know how did your team, get scheduled for two games in Canada, and just what was the experience like for your team to play, two exhibition games in
Yeah.
Canada?
Yeah, it was awesome. So every 3 years in Division III, you get to do an international tour. So a
Okay,
lot of teams go south and play either in the Bahamas, Puerto Rico, something like that. We
okay,
decided to go north. We feel like we can get a lot of good competition against the Canadian teams that start a little bit earlier than us. So they're in full swing kind of beginning of August. So they have about 2 months under their belt when they play us. So gives us awesome competition. We played Western University in Guelph, two really prominent programs in Canada that have been really successful. So it's great for us to get that great experience, especially in a year where you have a lot of turnover. So we graduated five last year and five of our top six. So in a year where we have a lot of new people trying to figure out our new identity, it was great to get the extra 10 days of practice and two exhibition games to be able to play against two really good competition. And on the other side, it's just great to have our team together a little bit longer. I think every athlete would say that their best experiences is traveling and eating together and spending the night and getting to do really unique activities. So for the
yeah,
team, they love just being able to be around each other a little bit longer and earlier in the season.
yeah. You mentioned doing unique or fun activities. Did your team get to do anything fun in Canada, like sightsee or anything, or were you mostly just
Yeah.
there to play, games and then go
So
back to
we stayed
Kentucky?
in London, Ontario, which is about
Okay.
2 hours from Toronto. So we took a day trip to Toronto. They got to sightsee, go shopping, do all the fun things that they loved. So Toronto was a really cool experience for them. So it was fun.
Yeah, that's probably really fun and just a great way to connect with your players given as it's your first
100%.
season as, head coach.
Yep. Yep. It was
Um
awesome.
yeah, so those are two exhibition games. And your regular season begins in about 2 weeks. So for you, given this is your first season as head coach, what are you looking forward to most this upcoming season that begins in about 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think I'm most looking forward to the process and the journey of our team figuring out our new identity. There's been a lot of turnover that we've talked about between the players graduating, new roles from the coaching staff. So I think we've just been really excited to work through that process and figure out what our new identity is going to be. Keep what we know that works for us, change what we know doesn't work for this group, and just kind of going through that learning process and figuring out who we are and what our different strengths and weaknesses are this year.
Yeah. So obviously, which we'll get into in a little bit, your program, at Transylvania is really incredible, one of the best Division III in the nation. But right now, can you just tell me how does your team look going into the upcoming season? Can you just tell me like how does your roster look and just touch on any notable players that you want to talk about?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of new faces from people that have watched us play the last 3 or 4 years. And I think what I tell everybody is the reason that Transy has been so successful for the length of the time that we've had is because we've really placed a high premium on player development. So instead of us being great for 1 or 2 years, we've been really successful at a national level for the last 5 to 7 years because we really focus on our underclassmen and their player development. So while they might have not gotten a lot of playing time on the court because they're playing behind all American and all region players, they're playing against those players every single day and the top players in the country. So we had a lot of talented underclassmen that have been biding their time and putting in the work in the off season, and now it's their time to shine. So notable returners, we have our starting point guard, Sadie Worth, back from Dixon, Kentucky. She was, I think, top 5 in the country last year in assisted turnover ratio. So having a strong point guard lead that's been in those big games will definitely help us from that position. Our backup center will now be a starter, Emily Teal, also a senior. And then we have a lot of talented juniors and sophomores, like I said, that have been biding their time, playing against the top competition in the country, and now it's kind of their time to shine and their team to run. We brought in a transfer from center who I think will help us a lot, and then 5 really talented freshmen that are just kind of going through the learning process right now, but have been extremely coachable, very willing to learn. So we're really excited about their growth over the next couple of weeks as we continue to practice and get games in.
Yeah, Coach, you talked about the player development. I don't want to give, too much away, but anything you're willing to share, can you talk about the player development? Does, that involve, seniors, being mentors or spending more time with first years, or does, that involve coaches, mentoring or helping out, first years more, can you just touch on the player development, and how you hope to build up your first years?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both of what you just said. I think we really try to focus our coaching style on the teaching aspect first. So, like you said, by the time we have juniors and seniors, they've done the exact same thing and understand the reads, understand what we're trying to do, especially on the offensive end. So, when they are upperclassmen, our expectation is that they are teaching the people below them. So, we try to have a serve down culture of I should have the hardest job. I've been here the longest. I serve down to our assistant coaches. They serve down to the seniors. Seniors serve down to the juniors. So the freshmen for us should have the easiest job because they are going through the most change and the most information processing. So I think it's a mixture of really trusting our upperclassmen to teach the people below them, and then really our entire staff just getting in the gym with as many players as we can, as often as we can. I think that's the only way that you can get better is putting the ball in the basket, especially on the offensive end. So our staff does a really great job of working one-on-one with our post players and really putting them in positions that they will see in game versus just spending time in the gym to spend time in the gym. So we
Yeah.
try to make everything really replicate what we do in a game versus just getting a lot of shots up that we don't actually shoot in a game. So good mixture of both, kind of like what you mentioned.
Yeah, that's really great. So you've been at Transylvania, you've been, coaching there as an assistant since 2020. I wanted to touch on, first, the special season that your program had in the 22-23 season. Your team went 33 and 0. You won your first Division III National Championship in program history. And another critical stat was, only 2 games in that season were within single digits. So, can you just tell me about the, 2022-23 season, and how special that was for, you as assistant coach, but also just how special it was for your program overall?
Yeah, it's indescribable is probably the only word that I could use. It's one of those feelings that I don't think you could ever replicate other than being in that feeling and having that year be the year of a joint championship between Division One, Two, and Three made it that much more special. So if I would suggest anyone to win it, it would be in a year that you have a joint championship because it's pretty incredible. Playing in American Airlines Center was just kind of an indescribable feeling, but I think if you told us going into the year that would be the outcome, I don't think any of us would have expected that. The year before, we lost the Elite Eight to Trine, and we're just kind of figuring out how special and great this team was. And we spent a lot of time in that off season really nailing down, what were kind of the things that were holding us back on the court and off the court, and had a lot of vulnerability sessions of really figuring out what we needed to do to take the next step with that program. And I think going in that year, we had an awesome offseason basketball wise. And I think what was really unique about that team was they never really cared about the winning streak or how much we were winning by. They just really focused on the next game. And our goal at the beginning of that year was to win a national championship. And we wrote it down, and writing down big goals is scary, but I think for them, we knew that we had put in the work and earned it and deserved it and had the talent to achieve it. So it was really cool to see that team write it on paper and have it kind of come to fruition in that way. And like I said, I think the team did an awesome job of not worrying about the outside expectations or what we were winning by or how many games in a row we had won. And even going into last year, I know a lot of people talked about the 64 game win streak and all that, but they were just worried about the next game and the end goal, which was trying to win a national championship.
Yeah. You mentioned, getting to play in the American Airlines Arena. It's probably, almost just as special as, winning the championship and going undefeated for your team. It was
100%.
really great experience. So, let's talk about last season. Your team, had an incredible, were undefeated until losing in the Final Four of the D3 National Championship to NYU. I got to interview Annie Barrett. She's an assistant coach at NYU, a few months ago when after winning the national championship. So I know, NYU also has a, great women's basketball program there,
Mm-hmm.
but just talk about last season for your team. What was it like, for your team to have a 64 game win streak, the third longest in the history of, D3 women's basketball, and just, how difficult was that loss for your team, losing in the Final Four to NYU?
Yeah, I think, like I said, the outside perspective was that everybody was talking about it, but inside of our huddle and our circle, we were much less worried about that than what our end goal was to try to repeat as national champions. And they took it, credit to them. They didn't care what anybody else said. They didn't care about the expectations, which were very high, having 3 fifth-year seniors return to try to double down on what we did the year before. So credit to the team of just going in and really competing every single day and trying to get better and not sitting on what we had done the year before and being okay with having another year. So it was really cool to see as from a coach's perspective of the team not being okay with doing it once but trying to repeat. Yeah, and that loss was very hard. Credit to NYU, they were amazingly talented,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure the outcome would have been different if we had played them again. But they're a very very talented team, and once again, it was an amazing experience just to be back in the Final Four for the second straight year with that group. And while it was not the exact outcome that we wanted, I'm just really proud of that team for taking the expectations and living with that pressure on our shoulders for the entire year and having the whole outside world talk about a streak and trying to win that many games in a row. And they really just had the end goal in mind the entire time. So it was really cool to see from a coach's perspective.
Yeah. So Coach, anything that you know about your program, its history, can you tell me about, the women's basketball program at Transylvania? And I've always heard, your team has a winning tradition. So can you just tell me about the winning tradition your program has and, why your team, is so successful, particularly, in the recent years?
Yeah, I think it started 11 years ago when Julie Folks took over the program and kind of completely changed the trajectory of it. And we had always really competed, in our conference and been successful in years prior. But I think she really turned and took this team to a national scale, which is the first that we had seen. And now we've had two All-Americans in the last 3 years and I don't know, 5 straight NCAA appearances and 6 straight conference championships. So I think the dynamic of the program really shifted when she took over to take it over to a national level.
Mhm. Yeah, you mentioned you were on the staff of Julie Folks, beginning in 2020. So just talk about, being on Julie's staff, for the past 3 years. What did you learn, being on her staff? Obviously, she's an amazing coach, and just talk about how has, Julie been a mentor to you. I know you mentioned that in your introductory press conference in April, how she was a mentor to you, and just, talk about, how happy are you for Julie. I believe she's now the head coach at Marshall. So just
Mhm.
talk about, her mentorship and how happy are you for her, getting a new position, at a Division I program.
Yeah, it's been huge. And I mean, she's one of the big reasons that I decided to come to Transy. I met with her, was previously an assistant coach at Hanover and met with her the year before COVID and came down to Lexington, talked with her, and really just fell in love with the program and what she stood for and what the culture stood for. So yeah, she's been a huge mentor for me. I think the biggest thing that she gave me was just the willingness and the openness to let me try new things and figure out what I was really interested in and what I was good at, and then putting me in those positions to be successful. And then really giving me the opportunity to fail when it was things that I necessarily wasn't as great at. So she did a great job of really pushing me out of my comfort zone and giving me a lot of autonomy and freedom to try new things, teach new things, player development, film, social media, whatever it was that I was interested in doing. She gave me the full freedom to go try it, fail, try again, learn, give me advice. So just gave me a lot of freedom to try a lot of different things and mentor me along the way.
Yeah, it's great. So you were announced on April 16th as the eighth, head coach in program history for, women's basketball at Transylvania University. What did it mean to you when you were announced, I believe it was, one day after Julie, left and accepted the position at Marshall, one day later, then you were, announced as, the head coach. What did it mean to you when you were announced as the head coach? And, how did you feel, one day after Julie left that you were announced as, the head coach?
Yeah, a lot of emotions. I think the biggest thing would be grateful. One, that our previous athletic director, Dr. Shealy, gave me the opportunity really without opening the search at all. So having her trust meant a lot because she's one of the best athletic directors in the country, who's now in St. Louis and taking a new job. But I think grateful was the biggest thing. And you kind of mentioned it in one of your questions of 10 years ago, I was working in accounting and not necessarily in love with my current career path. And now I get to wake up every day and be a head coach and try to run a program and hopefully help our group of young women and student athletes excel in whatever they want to do, whether it's on the court, off the court. So the fact that I get to have a small piece in their life means a lot to me and gives me a lot of responsibility. So it's been really cool, and I think being at a place like Transy that now feels like home. And I've gone through the process the last 5 years of really helping grow this program on a national level is really exciting. So I think, like I said in my press conference, I know that what we do here works, and I know that Transy is a great place to be. And I didn't need to be sold on that because I've already been here. So I think made that transition a lot easier. And having our team's respect and buy-in made that transition a lot easier, which was our main goal, to make sure that they felt like during this transition they were supported along the way.
Yeah. So coach, I say this to be nice, but it also is you have an incredible story. You go from, 6 years ago, you're working in accounting at PwC. My sister also works at PwC
Oh,
in
awesome.
Boston. Yeah, she's in accounting. She studied accounting at Boston College. But
Awesome.
so 6 years ago, you're working in accounting, probably working at 9 to 5, sitting in an office. Now you're, the head coach at, one of the best Division III programs in the nation. So you do have an incredible story, and I want to touch on that. But first, just tell me about, where did you grow up? How did you fall in love with basketball? Like, growing up, were you into sports? Did you play sports growing up, or were sports not, part of, you growing up?
Yeah, so I'm from Columbia, Illinois, which is a small town in southern Illinois, right outside
Okay.
of St. Louis. I think basketball probably started for me of following my older brother around. He played a lot of uh, club basketball when I was growing up, and my dad was the coach, so I spent a lot of time following them around and just being in a gym. And I think that's kind of one of the things that my dad and I have shared over the last 20 years is just the love of the game. And started playing competitively more in middle school and then throughout high school. And for whatever reason, decided to go more of the career path in college versus playing. So went to University of Missouri, got my master's in accounting, and played club basketball during that time when I was at Mizzou. And was great for me. It was kind of the perfect combination of still being involved with the game and playing, but really focusing on what my future career was going to be, or what I thought it was going to be. Um, so then got a job at PwC downtown St. Louis and spent 3 years there. And during that time, I was helping out with my old high school team. And that process, I think, really helped me fall in love with coaching and really pursue it as a career. I had a player that I was helping player develop, and she was trying to get into college, and we were working out every day. And I really just fell in love with coaching and being around the game and trying to help the young athletes and what they were trying to accomplish. So I, on a whim, found an assistant coaching position at Hanover College. I spent 2 years there as an assistant, and then luckily the timing worked out 2 years later where Coach Folks's previous assistant was leaving for a Division I job. And like I said, I was able to come down and really just fell in love with Transy. I had known them just through playing in the league at Hanover. And Transy was kind of always the aspiration that everybody was trying to strive for. So the fact that I had a chance to come here and win at a really high level was exciting to me.
Yeah, so tell me more about your journey, to getting here at Transy. You attended University of Missouri. You got your bachelor's and master's in accounting. You worked for PwC, as you mentioned, in St. Louis for 3 years. And then, I believe while working at PwC, you were coaching at Columbia High School as an assistant coach for a few years. So just tell me about your journey, what drew you to become a college coach? What was it? What was it like, while you're working at PwC? What was it like, also, coaching in high school?
Yeah, I think PwC was a great experience for me, but it wasn't what I was very passionate about. I wasn't excited to go to work every day. I never felt like I was really making a difference, as cliche as that sounds. And I think spending time at my old high school really helped me fall back in love with the game and want to really pursue it as a career. And while that change was really scary for something that was very, structured and secure in the corporate world, I wanted to just try something new and go on a whim and follow my passion and see kind of where it led me, whether it was for a year or two and I fell back into the corporate world. And it's crazy to think now that that was 7 years ago and that, corporate accounting was going to be my backup plan. And I can't imagine going back now with kind of the way that my coaching career and trajectory has gone. So it's been an awesome shift for me. And I think being in the corporate world has given me a lot of real world experience that I can kind of hopefully share with my players. But coaching is really where my passion lands. And so from everything from player development of the X's and O's and everything that we get to do off the court at the Division III level, while we wear a lot of different hats, it's the best part for me of having a one-on-one relationship with our players and hopefully helping them through the college process and what they want to do in life after college.
Yeah. So I have two parts to my next question. The second part, if you can't answer it, that's okay. But I'm just curious
Yeah.
because for me, I work, I'm a software engineer. I work that, 9 to 5. I've always thought maybe someday of being, a college golf coach if possible.
Yeah.
But for you, first part of my next question, what drew you to become a college, basketball coach? And, you started, in college basketball at Hanover for 2 years. How did you, end up, you had no coaching experience except for high school. How did you end up, becoming a college coach? I've talked to a few coaches, they just sent a bunch of emails and letters to anyone in, college, athletics. Like with the college coach I talked with, they just sent, a bunch of emails. Like, did you just reach out to anyone you could, or did you get the position at Hanover through connections?
Yeah, no connections. Honestly, that summer I was just applying for more of the business side in the athletic department, whether it was compliance, assistant athletic director, something like that, just trying to get my foot
Yeah.
in the college athletic space and maybe kind of get into coaching from there. And I, on a whim, found actually it was an intern coaching position at Hanover.
Okay.
So I went down and met with their head coach, John Jones, and for whatever reason, he just gave me a chance. So it was honestly luck of the draw of I think he
Okay.
wanted someone that was a little bit older that had kind of some real world experience and was really passionate about coaching and wanting to learn. So I give honestly a lot of credit to him for giving me a shot and taking a chance on someone that didn't have any coaching experience. But I think I put in the work to hopefully, give it back to him a little bit.
Yeah, it's great. Luck of the draw, as you mentioned. Now you're, you
100%.
won a national championship, a few years later. Now you're leading one of the best, Division III programs 6 years later. So that's great.
Yeah.
So can you tell me, at Handover, you are an assistant women's basketball coach and director of basketball operations for 2 years at Hanover. So can you just tell me about your time at Hanover? Like, what did you learn in these 2 years? And just overall, how was your experience at Hanover?
It was amazing. Hanover, I don't know if you've been there. It's a very small town. The campus is absolutely beautiful. And like I said, I had never had really any coaching experience other than, a part-time volunteer at my high school. So I was very new and fresh to the college game and really what it required, especially at the Division III level. So I was lucky enough to have great mentorship from John Jones, the head coach. And then they had a former assistant, Chris Hitchcock, who worked part time with me, but was on a full time wise. So I had two really great mentors that walked me through that process and everything that it required from player development to scouting reports to recruiting, especially had no experience in there. So I give a lot of credit to them for really mentoring me through those 2 years and what it required. And we had a really great season. We had an All American our second year there and beat Transy that year that they were ranked number 6 and tied for the conference regular season title. So we had 2 really successful years. I think just getting a taste of what that felt like of winning at a really high level is really what drew me to Transy for my next step of wanting to compete at a national level and taste that excellence at the highest level.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. Coach, yeah, as I mentioned before, that is an incredible story. Well, from, 6 years ago, you're, working in accounting, and now you're the head coach at, one of the top D3 programs in the country. So,
Yeah, it feels like a dream. It's pretty crazy. So
yeah,
I'm
it is.
very lucky and blessed.
Well, crazy. That just gets to my next question. I have 3 more questions I want to talk about, but for you, what does this opportunity mean to you, to lead the Transy women's basketball program, one of the top D3 programs in the nation? What does this, opportunity mean to you? And how crazy is it, just overall, for you to think about, 6 years you're working in accounting and now you're a head coach, in Division 3? Just, how crazy has this journey overall been for you?
Yeah, it's hard to put words to a lot of times, and honestly, having this conversation is a great reminder for me of how blessed I really am to have this career path and make that leap and how it's worked out for me. So it's been a cool journey, I think, to share with our players that come through this program because I think a lot of times in today's age and social media, there's such this structure to what your life is supposed to look like, and you have to get this job and this degree, and that's the only way that you can be successful. So it's been hopefully inspirational, at least to some of our players, of trying to pursue their passions and work really hard to achieve them, and some crazy things can happen along the way. But it's been an amazing journey, and I'm so thankful for the entire athletic department here, the entire administration here that has supported our program and our staff every step of the way. So none of that would be possible without our leadership here. And I think our athletic department has a really unique culture where I think we currently have 4 head coaches that were previously assistant coaches here at Transy. So being able to rely and lean on them and ask questions. And I'm in our volleyball offices, 3 days a week, just asking them different questions of how do I handle this situation and what do you guys do here? So I think having a great environment around us has been instrumental to my success, specifically this year, making that transition and hiring a new assistant coach who's been amazing and helping through that process. So we have a great culture here and a lot of people willing to help, which is the key for any program to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned about your assistant coach. That's my next last question I want to touch on. You hired Delaney Williams as your assistant coach at the end of August. After Delaney was an assistant graduate assistant coach at Illinois Wesleyan. So can you tell me a little bit about, Delaney? Just what she brings to your program. And just hiring her at the end of August.
Yeah, she's been an awesome addition so far, even in the 3 short months that she's been here. She played basketball at Wittenberg, another Division 3 school in Ohio, won a conference championship there her senior year, and then was part of a really, really successful Illinois Wesleyan program the last 2 years. So she
Mhm.
understands what high competitive Division 3 basketball requires, both from a player and a coaching perspective. So she's been an instrumental addition to our staff, and I'm really excited for her. Now she started, player development workouts and scouting and really getting to know our players on an individualized basis. So she's been a perfect addition to our staff. We're very different personality wise, which I think is great. I think having 2 people that are exactly the same, that doesn't necessarily help the program. So she's been an amazing addition. I'm really excited to continue to work with her as we start game prepping and all those things in recruiting.
Yeah. So finally, Coach, I always end on this question, but for you, you mentioned that you're really passionate about coaching. And that was eminent even in your first interview for your first position. But for you, what do you enjoy most about being a college coach? And just overall, just tell me about, what do you look forward to most in this opportunity to lead, the Transy Women's Program?
I think it's the people for sure. I think having even more of an impact on our student athletes is why I took the job and why I've stayed at Transy. I think we have an incredible group of young women that I'm just excited to be around and learn from them and hopefully teach them along the way. So I think being able to have any impact in their life, as small as it is why I love the job. And I tell all of our recruits and all of our players that basketball is really just the tool that we use to help them in their life become better future professionals, better leaders, better community members. And the fact that I get to use basketball as the process to do that is a dream job for me. It's the people for sure. And like I mentioned, our athletic staff here is amazing. So having a group of people that I can rely on and lean on has been a really unique experience.